Today we're talking about Marvin F. Hinton, the Biloxi, Mississippi-born heavy machine gunner with the codename Roadblock. Before we begin, I do want to thank you whether it's your first time here or you're returning for watching JL's Comics. Don't forget to share this and subscribe so you don't miss all of our videos we make each week, just like this one. Let's jump right into this video. Marvin was raised by a good church-going mother who every Sunday had him singing in the church choir. Marvin was also active in the Biloxi community. As a Boy Scout, his mom raised him with strong traditional values and morals that would serve him well with the teams. In fact, he'd go on to become a moral guidepost for his fellow operators in the years to come. During this time, Marvin discovered his love for cooking. He wanted to become a gourmet chef. He started working as a bouncer in Biloxi to raise money so he could attend a prestigious culinary school in France. One night, an army recruiter saw this massive bouncer and was able to convince Marvin that it would be easier and quicker to become a chef in the United States Army. Plus, he'd still get to see the world. Marvin's interests lay in the French haute cuisine style, and he quickly became appalled with the food and rations available during boot camp. So he transferred to infantry, where he became qualified on the M2 Ma Deuce. And here's a quote: "Anything that weighs over 50 pounds and has an auto switch on it. Roadblock prefers the M2 Ma Deuce 50 cal as his personal weapon." End quote. He just carries 132 plus pounds of machine gun and ammo with him everywhere, as we all do. He's an expert with handheld weapons and can take apart, repair, and reassemble a jammed M60 machine gun in less than 60 seconds. He's a gourmet chef with no taste for cobra. Roadblock is able to take simple K rations and make them into gourmet delicacies. After boot camp, Roadblock served as an assistant instructor to Duke at Ranger School. Before becoming Joes, Duke and Roadblock were with U.S. forces in Trucial-Abysmia supporting the Emir from separatist revolutionaries. There was a resupply convoy, Roadblock the gunner atop an armored Humvee, when a badass soldier named Maureen was hit in the face and with a fatal wound to a thigh artery. She died heroically. But after returning stateside, Duke and Marvin visited Maureen's brother at his pub to tell him that she was a hero. Duke then reveals he's wanted to take on a new assignment on Staten Island, presumably the formation of the new team, but he has to take Marvin with him. In April of '84, Larry Hama introduced him in the 22nd issue of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero for Marvel Comics. Later that same year, Roadblock's first action figure debuted. Interestingly, his version 8 action figure, which was released in 2002, came with the name Charles Griffith from Dayton, Ohio, instead of Marvin Hinton. Griffith, however, is the government name for Double Blast, and also in the real world, the guy who helped write file cards in 1997. This was all right around the time that copyrights on some of the Joe's names had lapsed. Hasbro wasn't able to use them until they got those rights reacquired. But in his debut issue, the G.I. Joe team flew to Washington, D.C. for General Flagg's funeral at Arlington Cemetery. Cobra Commander had an informant inside Fort Wadsworth that sent him plans for a full-dress funeral. Flagg's funeral. Duke and Roadblock were late to the ceremony, having just come off a mission and with no time to change into dress screens. As the funeral ceremony went on, Clutch and Covergirl noticed a plane bearing down on their position. Just as the pilot armed his missiles and was seconds away from being enraged, Roadblock leapt out of the Jeep, M2 in hand, and emptied an entire belt of 50 cal hot lead into the Cobra Rattler, which burst into flames and crashed into the tree line nearby. And that super heroic entrance introduced the team to Roadblock. Rock and Roll moved to the position of light machine gunner after that. Issue 23 found Roadblock 50 miles south of Bern on the Italian border with Switzerland as part of a surveillance op on the Baroness, who was there to repair her face. It also happened to be the same time that the International Fantasy Convention's Gala Masquerade Party was happening, so Cobra Commander and Blood planned it where they could show up and everyone think it was just costuming and cosplay. After Clutch and Covergirl and a Porsche Carrera gave chase to Major Blood in his massive Duesenberg, Blood aimed the giant grill on the classic car right at Roadblock, who happened to have his Ma Deuce in a guitar case next to him where he was sitting in Cafe Luca. He emptied another full belt right into the radiator and engine of the doozy. Another car chase, which saw Roadblock flip a vamp back on its wheels by himself. The Joes actually captured Cobra Commander. They quickly loaded him on a transport plane and brought him to this remote plateau high up in the Rocky Mountain range where they had a prefab fortress installed in the snow. Soon after this, Storm Shadow swooped in on a glider to rescue Cobra Commander, and another chase ensued. Gung Ho and Roadblock on foot, and Duke in a Skyhawk. Gung Ho was taken down by one of Storm Shadow's katanas, and Storm Shadow was taken out by a Goldberg-like spear. Roadblock then trudged back to the prefab fortress in the deep snow with Gung Ho on his back, dragging Storm Shadow in one hand and carrying that super heavy 50 in the other. After this, they took Storm Shadow to Alcatraz Island on a Coast Guard boat to hold the ninja there as a temporary brig, but he, as you would guess, escaped. Shortly after this, a team of Joes tracked Cobra Commander to Zartan's lair in the Everglades. and after a couple battles, they headed out to a G.I. Joe freighter anchored in the Gulf of Mexico called G.I. Jane. They regrouped to re-attack. Deep Six and Roadblock each took a turret and a whale, but the whale was hit, taking out Roadblock's turret and striking Deep Six. Deep Six's turret worked, but he couldn't elevate it enough to shoot at the Rattler that had banked around for another strafing run. So Roadblock, the beast that he is, lifted it onto his back while Deep Six shot the Rattler, with Destro in the cockpit right out of the sky. Later, Duke complimented him, but he said humbly, "I just stood there, he pulled the trigger." In issue 38, Roadblock, Ripcord, Stalker, and Gung Ho were tasked with going down to Sierra Gorda to rescue Dr. Adele Burkhart, and they meet up with Recondo. They end up having to rappel down this giant sheer cliff face to infiltrate the stronghold below them. During the first assault on Cobra Island, we see Roadblock firing at a helicopter, and these panels are one of the few moments we see Roadblock rhyming as he is, matching his animated counterpart. Then when Ripcord sent them the location of the Cobra base in Springfield, Roadblock was part of the team to take the airport and the roads leading into the town. Another famous incident was the time Roadblock had to head back to Sierra Gorda to extract the U.S. ambassador who was trapped at the U.S. embassy. There were looters and revolutionaries all around, but Roadblock saw one looter with a cigarette lighter about to ignite the American flag, so he quickly pointed his 50 at the looter and told him to stand down. Shortly after this, Cobra was embroiled in civil war on Cobra Island. The Joes had allied themselves with Serpentor, who was taken out by an arrow from Zartan, but this left the Joes in defeat and at the mercy of the corrupt General Malthus and his jugglers. General Hawk and Hollingsworth, along with Roadblock, were taken prisoner, but Roadblock escaped. He went to see Dr. Burkhart for help, and she said, "Yes, Marvin, I'll help you." A quid pro quo of sorts, I guess, for him helping her out of Sierra Gorda. Anyway, they freed Hawk and Hollingsworth, exposed Malthus, and cleared the Joe team all at the same time, and it was Roadblock who was instrumental in making this happen. In issue 101 through 106, he actually teamed with the October Guard, again in Sierra Gorda, where he was injured and temporarily blinded. Later still, he took part in the bloody, lethal, and brutal Battle of Benzine. He was a prominent part of the team until issue 155 saw them decommissioned. This is when he returned to his culinary life and went on to write several cookbooks. This was now the dark period, that time between the Homoverse canon. It was a time when Hasbro had let some of the copyrights expire, Roadblock included, so they pivoted towards Heavy Duty as the main heavy. In G.I. Joe Spy Troops, we learned that Heavy Duty is Roadblock's cousin. Renegades tells us also that he has a cousin named Herschel, and in the live-action movie, Heavy Duty's real name is Herschel Dalton. But back in comic books, Roadblock re-ups with the team for the Homoverse continuation and takes part in the assault on Silent Castle in issue 159 and 160. In issue 169, Marvin's back to his bouncer roots as he guards the entrance to the interrogation room at the pit. And in the next issue, Roadblock, Flint, Lady J are on a mission to capture Darklon. The helicopter flying Nap of the Earth sends them in country, and on their way out, both Lady J and Darklon are hit with small arms fire. Flint chooses to save LJ, while Roadblock has to save Darklon by plugging his chest wound with a sandwich bag. Roadblock returned to guard duty as Darklon was actually held in a cell, but he overcame Roadblock and escaped. Later we learned that this was planned. Darklon had a tracking device on him, so he actually wasn't overpowered. He let Darklon escape. When the Joes revealed that they're reviving Serpentor to help control the alien eye, yes, it happened, Roadblock is chosen by the team to be the mental controlling factor, so Serpentor doesn't go off the books. They all decide that his morals and ethics run the truest and the deepest. Issue 263 finds Flint and Roadblock in Arlington again, honoring all their fallen comrades and recounting their first issue together. This is the last time we see him in the run, but no doubt not the last. Kenneth Holiday voiced Roadblock for 36 episodes, as well as G.I. Joe the movie. Differing from his comic book counterpart, except that one panel I mentioned, the animated Roadblock would talk in rhyme all the time. He also got to warn some children in one PSA about the dangers of fallen power lines, and another about stranger danger. Oh, and Roadblock's also the guy who lays down cover fire when the Joes need to clear Cobra Astro Vipers off a planet's surface. Yep. Star Brigade and freeze-dried space food. Anyway, that's a wrap on this one, my friends. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, corrections, and suggestions down below. And don't forget to subscribe so you can be a part of all of our videos, new and old. I'm Jesse. This is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.